a bit more about Donnie before we leave the broadcast tonight, but I think Donnie is going to join us for this inaugural telecast at some point later on this evening. But as I mentioned, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Donnie and Donnie's capacity for pushing issues important to Blacks in this country, really around the world, first and foremost. Donnie's broadcast from the White House has been on a numerous number of local TV stations. And speaking with Donnie, when he launched Black News USA, his hope and desire, I believe, which I hope that 60 Minutes in Black USA continues to promote, was to bring together the communications of our people so that we can be on one page and understand the real deal and the real story as relates to Blacks in this country, and bridge the gap between us and America and from where many, if not all of us, have come from, those on the continent of Africa. So let's get started with tonight's inaugural show. And I got to tell you, I'm really excited to have this gentleman in the studio with me today. He's a wonderful spirit, wonderful personality. I'm not going to tell his story. I'll let him tell his story. But let's bring Mr. Maxwell Aduzzi into the studio. Maxwell, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Good to see you, Maxwell. First of all, Maxwell, before we get started, man, let me light this candle because it's an honor. Today is your birthday.
Oh, yes.
Today is your birthday.
Thank you.
And a birthday wish for you. Because what better way for someone to show appreciation for you than to allow for you to celebrate your birthday on this inaugural show. So best wishes from all of us, myself, Donnie, the listening audience. And let's get right into it, man. So you were born today, a number of years ago. We're not going to ask you that.
Yeah.
But what we would like to know is, what has life been like for you in the company African Loom tours? What are you about? Who is Maxwell? Before I get into some other questions I have specific for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank your listeners as well. As you said, I was born this day, in Ghana, in Accra, Ghana. But I'm an Ashanti, from the Ashanti region. But my father was working in Accra, so that's where I was born. And I came to the United States in the late 70s to go to college at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. So after graduation, I came in as a pre-med. And my junior year, I realized that was my calling. So I switched to economics. So I majored in economics. And after graduation, I worked on Wall Street for a while with Untitled Chapter, doing leverage buyouts till the market crashed. And when it crashed, I decided I have to work on my own, start a new business. So because my father always tells me I should do my own business. If I want to be wealthy, independently wealthy, I have to own my own business. So I've always had that in mind, to have my own business. And so after the market crashed, I formed the African Loom, which was stemmed actually from the way people, especially white people, because my school was predominantly white, and the kind of questions they were asking me about Africa. I was amazed that, man, in this day and age, the picture that have been painted for everybody, including the Africans, is so bad. It's so degrading that we always find ourselves everywhere as a second-class citizen. And I thought this thing is so powerful and it needs to change. So what happened was I first started with a African art and craft shop, which brought people in, and then we went into African fashions. And then when I had that store, people come in and ask me almost the same questions. So I decided no. To be able to change the minds, which is actually a picture that have been painted, and we have looked at it for so long that it has become a reality. So I said no. To be able to change it, I have to be able to take them there to see another picture, to see the real picture, to change what picture somebody has actually given them.
Maxwell, I'm going to cut you there because
Okay.
before we get into that story, and let me let the viewers know that Maxwell is so important and compelling to lay the foundation to what 60 Minutes in Black USA is going to be about, that this is a two-part series because we can't cover the educational component that we hope to. If we are to change our trajectory as a people, we have to know from where we come. And so we're going to be using Maxwell, and we'll have another invited guest in the same light next week back to continue the educational story. But Maxwell, in the Washington Post, it was compelling in the Washington Post last year on July 4th in the middle of the pandemic. This story was published by the Washington Post. It says, "Democracy dies in darkness. Ghana to Black Americas, come home. We'll help you build a life here." As the United States again confronts its history of racism, as outrage against erupts of police killings, leaders in Ghana say they're rolling out their welcoming mat for Black Americans who want to get away from the turmoil. And Maxwell, maybe that's part of the answer, the solution, as we begin to gain a foothold or create a footprint, a Black agenda in this country, simultaneously building a bridge and a relationship with our homeland of Africa. There's an educational piece that I'd like our viewers to understand. And as I mentioned, this is a two-part series, but can you talk to us more about the importance of Ghana and its role in African Americans settling in America, or Blacks or Africans settling in America?
Yes. Going back to history, Ghana, the first European landed in Ghana in 1471, the Portuguese. And it wasn't their intention to come to Ghana. They're on their way to India. But when they stumbled in Ghana and the amount of gold that they saw there, they were amazed. And they sent a message back to Spain, because it was the Spanish king who commissioned them to start this journey. So when they came and they saw the gold, they settled. And the place where they found the gold is called the Elmina, which means in Portuguese is El Mina, which means the mines. They've never seen such, an amount of gold, and the purification. We had the technology in 1471, the technology to purify gold. But do you know that today Ghana can purify their own gold? Every Thursday, they mine the gold and it goes to Switzerland and it's purified from 18 karat to 24 karat, which is the purest form. So that is where the colonization started. So over the years, later on in the um, 16th century, when they discovered America and they needed the laborers, that's when the unfortunate transatlantic slave trade started. So when it went on, and the first group was actually taken through the Elmina Castle to Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. That's 400 years ago. And that's when all our, Black people all over the world, our status was dropped to slavery and colonization. We were no more human beings created in the image of God. We were like hewers of wood and drawers of water. So these things were going on till 1957. We got our total independence through Kwame Nkrumah, who studied here in HBCU and then had his master's from University of Pennsylvania. He was the one who started all this, the Pan-Africanism, where he brought in African Americans, because he studied here and saw what was going on. And he realized that it's the same thing going on the continent. And for us to be reconnected, we need as a people to come together as one family, the African family that were fragmented. So,
you mentioned the first Prime Minister, Nkrumah. One of the first guests that he invited, which many people don't know, was Martin Luther King. And he extended to Martin Luther King the invite to tell his people in the U.S., because Martin Luther King at that point was at the height of the civil rights movement. And Martin Luther King mentioned it in one of his speeches back at his church, that the Prime Minister of Ghana has invited us to take residence and to come home and have dual citizenship in Ghana. And we'll talk more about later the exploitation of that by some Blacks that actually went there and did that.
yes. So the first group that went, like Du Bois, who actually became a citizen, denounced the U.S. citizenship, and died and buried in Ghana, both with the wife. They are buried in Ghana. And we have Maya Angelou and Dr. Lee from Virginia. I mean, to name a few, there were a lot of African Americans who went back and they started building the economy, bringing their expertise. As a matter of fact, Du Bois' wife was the first managing director of Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. She was the one who put it together. So we had all this. Dr. Lee was a dentist. He was the first Black dentist there. So all these people were coming in to help build, till unfortunately in 1966, Nkrumah was overthrown and by the CIA, and then this propaganda stuff set in again and we split. I mean, African Americans were more treated.
We may be having some technical difficulty with Mr. Maxwell, so we'll wait for him to straighten.
Good name.
Whatever reasons, but hopefully you can hear me. Mr. Maxwell, are you back?
I can hear you.
Yeah, okay, well, good, you're back, and we'll just pick up from there, and we'll just let that little technical difficulty go right on by.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we are good to hear you.
Okay, so after the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah, things changed again, and the military took over, and the propaganda of African Americans coming in to exploit and all this that set in, and there was another division. So,
Did you say
most,
African Americans coming in to exploit African Americans? Is that what you said?
yes, that was the propaganda.
Okay.
Yes,
Propaganda. That's what they said, but it wasn't necessarily true.
no, it wasn't true because the way Kwame Nkrumah, they wanted to destroy everything that he's built, everything that he's taught them. They wanted to reverse it. So everything he did, education, I mean, everything was reversed. So it's in a way they were telling us that, this is not going to work. They don't need the African American, they need more of the European. So we moved back to that because Nkrumah got the independence in 57 and drove all the Europeans away and started bringing in different people to help build the economy. So when after that coup, everything started going down again for Ghana. So Ghana was really, economy was tanking. And then one J.J. Rawlings took over again and changed the course. So he was actually one of the first people who started recognizing the African Americans again, all the Black people in the diaspora, and bringing them back. So,
Hey, Maxwell, can you explain diaspora? Because many people hear that terminology. What does that mean? What does diaspora mean? What does diaspora mean? Explain that to us.
in lay terms, is the Africans that have been dispersed all over the country. So any African that finds himself outside the continent is dispersed and is they are in the diaspora.
So is that saying that all African Americans are part of the diaspora?
Yes, usually sometimes they'll limit it to some Africans who have gone. But to me, in my definition, every African all over the world are diasporans of Africa.
So let's talk about for a minute, not necessarily the different tribes, but the different countries within Africa. And we'll get into later the tours that you give and how you go throughout the continent. But Ghana apparently was the port of departure to the Americas from the various countries within Africa. Is that true? And what did that situation look like? What was the housing like? How did they prepare the slave owners for the departure of African? What did that all look like in us coming to America?
Okay. I initially told you the first European that came was the Portuguese in 1471. And after they started trading, I mean, when they settled and they found out that we have a lot of gold and everything they were looking for from India, we had more and better. So when they settled, we were actually trading as equal partners. But initially, they stay on the boat and we take the canoes and take our goods and exchange. So it was a barter system at that time, till they requested that since this trade is expanding, they should give them a place to build a trade post. So in 1482, Kwame Nkrumah, the then king of the Fantis, gave them a piece of land, and that is recorded as the first time a piece of land has been negotiated by an African and European. So they built the castle, a trade post in 1482. And then they started trading. So mostly it was, cargo spaces, warehouses and all that. But then when the slave trade started, the need for human service started. All those cargo spaces and the storage were turned into slave dungeons. So this is what happens. Though Ghana, because we had our coast had sedimentary rocks, they were able to build on the rocks on the ocean. So the ship can come all the way to the doors of the ocean. So
we share the same Atlantic Ocean with
yes,
with Ghana. So that was an importance as well.
yes,
The Atlantic Ocean is shared between the west coast of Africa, Ghana, and the U.S.
yes,
east coast of Americas.
yes. And so we had about 40 castles and forts dotted along Ghana, the coast of Ghana. So what happens was when the slave catchers comes in, they go into the hinterlands. They can go all the way to Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, mostly West Africa, and Senegal, and get the slaves and march them through the jungle all the way to the castle. But most of the time when they are coming, there's a river, a small river called Donkonsu in Asimanso, where they usually stop and they bathe them. That's the first time they'll take a bath and put, like shea butter on them so they look buffed so that they can be oceaned. And then when they are oceaned, they take them and put them into the castles. And the castles, and this is where sometimes it just disturbs me. And most people that I have taken through the castle, especially African Americans, have hallucinated, have fainted, have passed out because of the torture. Because you can still smell it. This edifice is still standing over about 600 years now. It's still standing. And what they do is when they bring them in, they put them in a small, packed till a ship comes in before they load them. But before then, they take them through rigorous activities so that they can get rid of the weak ones, which was so terrible. And the strong ones are the only ones who makes the journey. So I often tell people when I was at Trinity, and we had a collision, we call it Trinity Collision of Blacks. And I used to tell them, I said, look, you're not descendants of slaves. You were Africans minding your own business, and you were caught and enslaved. And you have to be really, really proud that you survived. You were one of the descendants of the survivors. That alone is big, because some of the captors even couldn't make the journey. And you have made the journey. Your ancestors made the journey, and you're still surviving. And they're trying to get rid of you, and you are still thriving. So the African American situation always baffles me. And that's why I always go back to the scriptures about Joseph. And we started a program in Ghana called the Joseph Project. And it's about the Joseph in the scriptures and his brothers. And I always believe that unless we reconnect with each other, like as Joseph and his brothers reconnected, we can never inherit the promised land. And
wow,
we need
that's
that.
powerful. That is powerful. One of your ministers made this comment in that Washington Post article. It says, "We want to remind our kin in America." He said, "Kin
Yes.
over there, that there is a place you can escape to, because in Africa, Ghana specifically, they recognize that we're all one and the same people." And before I ask you to speak to that, how many people or bodies did those dungeons or castles hold each? You said there were a certain number of them. How many did they hold at one time?
The Elmina Castle was the biggest, and it held 1,000 people at a time, 600 men, 400 women. And what they do is the women's part is where sometimes it's really, really gory, because that's where the women were raped, because of the mosquitoes. The sailors, the merchants, the Europeans didn't come with their wives. They never brought their wives. And these same people that they labeled savages and ugly and all this, they are the same people the governor will stand up there and point the one he wanted. And then the sailors at night will go in and rape the women. And when you give birth, you're pregnant, sometimes they release you to a place nearby called the stone houses, which they built. So that's where we had the mixed race children along the coast of Ghana. And also they have all the names of, the Johnsons and the Wilsons and all the sins.
So this is how many of us got the names that we may have received coming over to Americas from the rape and pillage of women and the mixing of races prior to them leaving Ghana.
Yes, but then when you conceive and you have the child, you don't leave. The mixed race, they kept them there. But then if sometimes on the way, you get pregnant, you're pregnant and you have baby on the boat, you are thrown overboard. The baby is thrown overboard because there was a law. Everything was evil anyway, but within the evil thing, they had a law that you can't bring babies. So because of that, when you're pregnant, they throw the baby overboard, to the ocean to die. So in all, people are saying, most historians are saying that in all, for the 400 years of the slave trade, they were able to capture about 60 million.
60 million what?
60 million people. 60 million people.
So you say 60 million black people became part of the slave trade?
Yes, over that period of time, whereby 1/3 died coming over, like through Mali and through the jungle. About 1/3 died in the passage, and about another 1/3 dies between the castle and between the castle and landing here in the United States. So only about 1/3 landed in the Americas, both in the United States and the Caribbean. So if we're talking about atrocities that have been, and they depleted Africa of their best, because when they come, they only take the strong. They only take, they leave the children and the old. So the middle age, who are very strong, and they are the ones who carry on the tradition and all the trade, they are taken out. So when they turn around and say Africans are, they don't know anything, they can't amount to anything, we haven't contributed to human civilization and all that, that's total lie. It's because of what they did. Just like in Haiti, when Haiti got their independence, because they knew that the Haitians might rise and do well and do everything, England, US, France got on their case and put things in place where till today is having effect on them not to rise.
Wow, that is powerful.
So it's nothing in this world just happens.
Wow,
They are caused to happen.
That's powerful. Mr. Maxwell, let me remind the viewers, this 60 Minutes in Black USA, our inaugural show. We're speaking with Mr. Maxwell Aduzzi, who is the CEO and president of African Loom Tours. And he's given us a historical perspective of the slave trade, slavery, Ghana, the relationship between the continent of Africa and America. And the hopes and dreams of laying this foundation for our inaugural show with Mr. Aduzzi is to better educate and understand where we've been and what our history is, so that we can maybe craft a path forward of reality, because we're a bit better educated. So, Mr. Aduzzi, we're at the halfway point of our show, and I know one of the most important parts of Ghana's history was in 2019, called the Year of the Return. And we're not even going to talk about yet the 10,000 people that you personally have taken from the U.S. to Ghana. We'll talk about that a bit. But talk a bit about the Year of Return, the relevancy of the Year of Return to Black Americans and African Americans, and the importance of it to the economy in Ghana as well.
Yes. As I said before, then in 2017, that was the 200th anniversary of the abolition of the slave trade. So that's when Ghana, between me and the minister at that time, Jake Obechebi Lamte, started the Joseph Project, where we decided that we need to reconnect with our kings and queens so that we can inherit our promise. So what happened was the government decided that the diasporans, the African Americans and the Caribbeans, should be given the right, if they choose to become citizens of Ghana, because they came through here. And even I know there are some Lebanese and some Indians in Ghana who have Ghanaian citizenship because they were born there. But because you're born in Africa, as Nkrumah said, doesn't make you an African.
Because you were born in Africa,
yes,
does not make you an
African.
What does that mean?
It's innate. It's in your DNA. You are born with it. It's not because you were born there. So even if you're an African, that you were born in the United States, you are more African than a European who was born in Africa.
So is that a bigger problem with Blacks or Africans born in America understanding that conceptually than Africans accepting blacks in America as African? Do Africans accept black Americans as Africans? What is their perception over there of us as a people here?
Okay. You know, there has been a lot of miseducation. The whole idea, you know, let me digress a little bit. In 1884, in Berlin, where they call the Berlin Conference, Africa wasn't the way it is today. It was Europeans with no Africans who partitioned Africa. Why? To be able to strip them of their humanity and you know, make them weak. So they are always trying to divide. Okay, so some Africans have not, the miseducation and the ignorance is that because these people were not born here, they are not. And this is what happened to Africa because of the partitioning of Africa. Let's take Togo. Togo, we had people in Togo who have relatives in Ghana. And when the Europeans were drawing the line, they drew it through. So some are here, your relatives, part are in Ghana, part are in Togo. Okay? The Togolese one now is French. And then the Ghanaian is English. And because of that, we don't relate. We think we are English. They think they are French. So they can cross and come to our country. The same thing that they see any other person. So African Americans were also seen as such. You are an American. You are not Ghanaian. But that is the miseducation, and that's what the effects of the partitioning of Africa was meant to be. And that's what is happening. And that's what has made us weak as a people. And
that's profound, Maxwell, you say that, because when you look at that partitioning or that strategy, relevant to some of the segregation issues that we have here in this country. And that's why I believe that in order for us to understand where we're going, we have to understand where we've been. We've got to communicate and compare notes. So to that conference in Berlin and the significance of it and the divide, if we don't understand the relevancy of what's happening here, how can we map out forward moving progress unless we understand the same strategies that are happening in our cities, in our state, in this country for Black people?
Yes. And that's why I love the idea of year of return, which was very successful, beyond their expectation. In 2019, the whole world, the whole Black world descended on Ghana. And they had found people, everybody wanted to come back. Because of that, the government said, wow, we have to continue with this. So now they have a 10-year program called Beyond the Year of Return. Now it's not just coming to see. Now you have seen what we are capable of, what we have, the mineral resources, the human capital, and all that. Now, how do we empower our people and take advantage of what God has blessed us with? God didn't put the gold and the diamonds and all the mineral resources in Africa for somebody else to come and take. It was there for the Africans. But because we took our eyes from the prize, somebody else has it. And now they have miseducated us to the point that we can't even subdue and dominate what God has given us.
Wow, powerful, Maxwell. Maxwell, let's regress back for a second. The year of return, because I want to make sure that our viewers and listeners understand the year of the return, not tax return, not something else, but the year of return, exploiting for Black people to go to Ghana to understand from whence we came or from whence we left, the year of the return. Can you break that down a bit more in terms of what the year of return was? I think you related that 400 years ago in 2019
Yes.
was the beginning of slavery. So that 400 year of return in 2019 was to what? Educate. If I had never been to Ghana and I go back to the year of return in 2019, so to say, from an educational perspective, what would you hope that I learned? What was the year of return from a definition perspective that you would hope that I would get if I was the Ghanaian people?
Okay, so the year of return was to bring the diasporans back to see where to actually know the truth, first of all. From
So
what
let's break it down, Maxwell, to bring the Black people back from America there, because diaspora may be confused. It took me 20 years to understand what that word meant.
Okay,
It
so
was
African Americans,
to bring them back, bring the Black people from America back. Is that what you mean when you say diaspora?
Yes, the African Americans were invited to come and see for themselves what their heritage was before they left, to learn more about the history, about what really transpired, instead of the movies and some of the books that were written. These are, you go there and you see tangible things like the castle. It's very tangible. It's there. You smell it. You can touch it. You see it. You see all the rooms, the door of no return where the ship docks, everything is still intact.
So the door of no return, what is that door? A door of no return? What does that mean?
Yes. Initially, when they built the castles, they built it as a trade post. So there was a big door that they take the cargo through to go to the ship. When the slave trade started, they narrowed it into so that only one person can go through at a time, because they don't want everybody going through with the confusion. So, but that door, as soon as you go through it, that's it for you. Either you end up in the United States or in the Caribbean, or you die. You're not coming back. And that was the idea. So it's the door of no return, that you are not. And the intention was that they taking you out and you're not coming back. They're going to change your identity. They're going to rename you, give you new culture, destroy what you already have, and make you into a new species. And that idea alone boggles me. It bothers me, because if you let anybody define you, you give them that power to always nullify you.
Wow, that's powerful. I heard you say that in the broadcast, and I wrote it down. It says, allowing anyone to define you, you give them the power to nullify you.
Yes.
Explain nullification so that people understand the nullification that we as a people may be under or affected by today. What does nullification mean to you?
Just to destroy you. That's to make you inhuman. What God created you to be. You were created in God's image. So we have that we are the head and not the tail. And therefore, nobody can sit on us. Nobody can suppress us. And that's when people easily, revolt. And, because we were made in God's image. So no human being should be able to sit on us. Okay. But we have allowed it. And there are ways that they have tantalized us to, make us soft, that we have accepted it, like our lot in life. But that is not what it is. So right now, we've gotten to a position where we've seen that no, these people have bamboozled us for so long, and it's
Wow.
time for us to rise as a people. And Ghana is taking that initiative. You know, Ghana, if you know, the Ashantis are in Ghana, and if you know the Ashanti history, they were never defeated by the Europeans. Never. All the fights they fought with Britain, they won. Even the woman called Ya Asantua, it's not even, but the woman Ya Asantua held the Europeans at bay for a long time for them to be able to change the golden stool, because they wanted the golden stool, and the lady said, no, this is an insult, we're not going to give it to them. And then they changed it. And the only time they were able to defeat the Ashantis was when they came in with deception that we are coming to draw a treaty, and this time no war, nobody should bring arms, and if we see anything like that, the deal is off. So the Ashantis went with no arms, and that's when they came in and went to the Ashanti kingdom and burnt down the city. That's the only time they were able to defeat the Ashantis. So
Wow.
the Ashantis, because of that, the Ashantis always have that lineage that they always, their ancestors, they respect their ancestors. So Ghana has always been the fact that every African, every Ghanaian, you know, in those days we were Africans, we weren't Ghanaians. They used to call us even the Gold Coast. We changed it to Ghana after the Ghana Empire. But they, you know, the year of return was to be able for them to come back and reconnect and empower ourselves as a people and go forth and also have inheritance to our children's children. Because these people, the Europeans, when they decided to colonize the continent and enslave our people, they weren't thinking about, you know, 10 years down there. They are thinking about thousands of years so that they can loot everything that God has blessed us with to develop their country and
Wow.
their children's children inheriting. So we also have to come together as one family, to be able to do that for our children.
I heard you say that twice, Maxwell, because as I mentioned, and I'll say it over and over again, the basis of your education is the foundation for change to me. Because we know in our public schools here in America, what you're teaching and showing us now has not been a widespread educational theory. Particularly when I was growing up, we were taught a different type of history. And if we don't know where we've been, how do we know where we're going? If people like Donnie Glover doesn't create platforms, black platforms for education and media and communications like this, how do we begin to collaborate to a point, as you said we have got to begin to come together as a people. So in the last 6 minutes of the show, because we're going to have a hard stop at 6:58 for some commercial breaks, but we know you're coming back next week, but we also have a higher agenda there. Let's talk about, for a few minutes, the 10,000, mostly African Americans, I believe, that you've taken over to Africa, and what that experience has been like. One man taking over 10,000 people, I think since 1994, you've taken over 10,000 people back to Africa. Why, and what was the experience of those that went over there?
Well, I wish we had somebody else on the show that has been on my trip to give that testimony.
The lawyer, she'll be there next week. She'll be next week, and she'll give that testimony next week.
Okay. Well, I wasn't trained as a tour operator. I had a mission. And my mission was to reconnect our people. So, because growing up, I was Pan-Africanist. I was young pioneer at with Kwame Nkrumah, and the Kwame Nkrumah, and then became Pan-Africanist and all that. So I had a mission. So when I took people, I started with churches and schools. So the first, actually, my biggest church that I've taken to, I can't mention the names, but 200 people that we took in 1999 to Ghana, Senegal, and Gambia. And on that trip, we had a lady who was 90 years. And that was one of the things that she wanted before she dies. And she was very energetic. She wanted to see everything and know everything. She never slept. On the bus, she is always sitting by me and asking all these questions. And it was eye-opening. So I enjoy what I do, because for me to see the joy in people's eyes of knowing and belonging was fulfilling to me. So when I take people, I drew my own itinerary. It's not just tour. We're not tourists. We are families going back home. So I know where to take you, who to talk to, and what you need to see and know in that 10 days. So it's too short a time for us to be, being all over the place. So it's well planned, and we go in, I concentrate on culture and history, especially in Ghana.
Well, Maxwell, it sounds like next week I will have someone with us. Matter of fact, a couple of people, one in particular that has been, you got me almost in tears when you talk about someone 90 years old that is so profoundly interested before she dies of her history and where she comes from. And do we all have to wait until 90 to get to that point? And perhaps if you lay in the ground of education, we thirst for that before, so that when we come back, we have a different perspective of Africa, because the misnomers and the perspective that many of us have now is very unfortunate. But one of the things that I learned in speaking with you was a percentage of women of that 10,000, which I found profound. How many of the 10,000 people that you took over there, what percentage of that were women?
80%.
80% of the visitors.
Actually, more than 80%.
More than 80%. Why is that? Is it with the black male? What is it that intrigues the women? Maybe is it the financial piece? Is it the preparedness piece? Is it the lack of ego? What is it that black men don't feel compelled to want to visit their homeland?
Well, financial is part of it too, because now, the black woman has, liquid. So it's, I think it's part of it as well. But for me, I think that colonization and enslavement of our minds, you always have to hit from the top. You need to strike the leader. And unfortunately, I think that's my opinion. I mean, I'm not, that's what it's nothing that I'm saying is the truth, but that's what my observation is that the system is harder on the man because if they are able to strike him down, they will be able to get the whole family. And because of that, the effect is more on them, I think, than the women. That's my own opinion. I mean, it's not, I stand to be corrected, and, it's not something that I said is the truth, but my observation.
Well, when you look at some of our systematic issues here in this country, and I guess in terms of the percentage of that 60 million slaves, what were males and how males were treated because of the strength, etc. When you look at the prison system in this country and the laws of justice in this country, which, down the road, this foundation will help us delve into with hopefully some actionable solutions. What you say is true. So whether it's your opinion or not, when you look at the factual nature of our correction and prison system and our law enforcement in this country, it is a strike down the black male. It is to create households maleless, but there has to be an answer to that within our own demographics as people. We can't blame everything on everyone else without coming up with solutions ourselves to some of the evils that we see. So Maxwell, we know you're coming back next week, and we know we're going to have a special guest with you next week that's going to talk more about, and we are going to start our black print or black footprint of change with you next week as we delve further into some of the conflicts and issues between African American and Africa, the continent, and our homeland. So final thoughts in the next minute that I've got for you. Final thoughts for today's show, and we look forward to having you back next week. Any final thoughts?
Yes, I think we have to start looking at a different picture instead of the picture that has been shown us for a long time, and change our mindset and get the families together and know how to to empower our own people.
Great. Thank you, Maxwell. Maxwell, I look forward to having you next week. It was an intriguing conversation, and I thank each of you who tuned in today to our inaugural show, 60 Minutes in Black USA, where we hope to come up with a black print for change, significant change in this country. And a note for Black USA News, Mondays, Shared Space with Dave, Quita, and Dason. Tuesday, the Donnie Glover Show. And Donnie, our CFO and president, is on every morning, Monday through Friday, 10 to 11, every morning, 10 to 11 a.m., Monday through Fridays. Tune in, listen to him, some compelling conversations. Wednesday at 7 o'clock, Nicole and Tamara with Sister Biz. Any sister, matter of fact, it's really for brothers. Brothers should be listening to this to understand some realities with sisters. Every Wednesday, Thursday, Black Business Roundtable from Oakland, California with Doug Blackshear. And also Black USA Crypto News on Friday at 7 with Kamal Hubbard and Tasmir Gathers from New York. Thank you all for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you next Sunday at 6 o'clock for 60 Minutes in Black USA. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.